there, meat friends. My name is Lynette. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am in Terrebonne, Oregon, which is Central Oregon area, and vacationing with my husband. In previous video, I talked about how it's a very different landscape than where our homestead is, just a couple of hours from here in Willamette Valley area of Oregon. Today we are outside hiking around the ravine by the Deschutes River, and actually up above the river. And I'm just investigating this new landscape to me, and I'm finding all kinds of fascinating things. It appears that most of the vegetation here is sagebrush and juniper. There are some grasses that are growing up in little tufts, and there are some little shrubby things that have flowers on them. Everything seems to be dried out right now. I don't know if that's a function of drought, because we have a problem with drought in Oregon, or if it's the time of year. It is December right now, but everything seems a little dry. The junipers are green mostly, but still feel very dry. And I found that growing off of some of the deadfall wood here are these little lichens, and I kind of got excited. They're bright green. It's the only thing bright green here, and they look like some of the lichens that we have back in the valley. But when I went up to them, I discovered they're actually dried out and hard, which is not how they are back in the valley. I do think it's the same thing, but they're just dried out. But what's fascinating is they kept their color when they dried out. So really interesting. And I'm also finding some really interesting lichens that are more flat on the rocks here, because the ground is very, very rocky. Obviously, we're in the mountains, and all over the rocks are a variety of, I think they're mostly lichens. One of them might be a moss, I'm not sure. And I've got to look up all the names for these, but there's this really pretty, like goldenrod yellow one that I want to figure out what it is. I have some recollection that it might be something that people use for as a dye. So I need to learn about that. And then there's a real pale green one. And then there's these ones that are the ones I think might be a moss. They make little kind of like bubbles, little round pieces all next to each other on the rock, and they're, you know, they have a texture. They're kind of mounded, but they're a deep, deep green, or maybe a black on top, and just really fascinating to me how different it is here from home. And I do have questions about if some of this stuff is because of the time of year, or if it's because of drought, why it's quite this dry. This is high desert. They don't get as much rain here as we do in the valley, but I wouldn't have figured that this would be hard and dried out. It feels extreme to me. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. So as a gardener and a dyer and a witch, all of these things that I'm discovering here are fascinating to me. It like hits on every level for me, all the things that I'm interested in. Some lichens make fantastic dye stuffs, and I am just starting to investigate how to use natural dyes. I've not used those before. In my dye business, I use professional acid dyes because they're very reliable, they're very repeatable. But now that we do have our homestead, I do want to try to grow more things for dyeing, and also to forage them. And I want to learn first how to do that responsibly. You know, I don't want to mess up the ecosystem just because I like pretty colors. And then you know, as a witch too, it's twofold. It's the spiritual practice that I do, and it's also medicinal, you know, and just basic taking care of ourselves and our bodies, taking care of my family. So I like to learn about all the different plants, lichens, mosses, all the different things, and learn what all they can do and what they can't do and which ones you shouldn't touch. So one of the things I'm finding all across the landscape here is just plentiful, it's all over the place, is this sagebrush. I haven't identified exactly which species yet. I'm going to work on that next, but it definitely is a sage. You can smell it, especially if you rub it between your fingers a little bit. Oh, it smells so good. I can imagine if I lived here, if I owned property here, I would definitely be taking advantage of this and several other species here to make my own smoke cleansing wands, and I'm interested to find out what variety of sage this is. It's everywhere here, like growing like a weed. I love the smell of sage. Like maybe my favorite scent for herbs. The other vegetation that seems to be primary here is juniper, and I thought I had that right the other day, and I looked it up, and I do. It's definitely a juniper, but I don't know which kind. I haven't dug that deep yet. It appears that there are 67 varieties of juniper, which I didn't know, and I also did not know that they're part of the cypress family, which that's kind of cool. I didn't know. And also I learned that what we call a juniper berry, the little blue berries, are not actually berries. They are like a seed cone. I did not know that either. So fascinating stuff. On a practical level, juniper has been used as a diuretic, as an antiseptic. It's even been used for arthritis, and I think something else I can't remember now. On a magical level, juniper has been used for cleansing, like sage has been. It's also used for protection, and what I read was removing evil spirits, but I really think that's more like removing negative energies. And in particular, it's also been used for funerary rites, which is interesting to me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed joining me today on my adventures out in the wild here. That's all I've got for you today. Blessed be.